the Mike Smith Blast. Arguably the most important blast beat in death metal. It's the first one that I knew how to use, and it's kind of where everybody starts. This gentleman used to play drums for Suffocation. He was the classic era drummer, and he invented such an important sound in death metal. And I'm going to explain to you why it's in 75% of everything I do and 75% of anything that most death metal drummers do. And here we go. So Mike Smith Blast, Hammer Blast, Unison Blast, Suffo Blast, All Down Blast. 5 names, same thing. I like to call it the Mike Smith Blast because where I first heard it. It is snare, kick, hi-hat, or whatever your timing cymbal choice might be. All on one. 1 Eana, 2 Eana, 3 Eana, 4 Eana. 1 Eana, 2 Eana, 3 Eana, 4 Eana. As you can see, everything is unisons. Something you can very easily take to your practice pad, which I do have a lesson for. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to investigate this kick pattern. Air quotes pattern. It's really not a pattern. It's just single stroke on the kicks like this. And what I recommend for making this tight, I like to use really dry sound sources to make things clear. So I'm going to close off my right hi-hat here. And I'm just going to line this up with the 2 feet going right, left, right, left, right, left, right. 1 Eana, 2 Eana. Here we go. 1, 2, ready. You're going to build this until, again, it's mindless, until it's normal, until it doesn't take any thought process. And what you want to do for the sake of memory retention is 3 minutes on, 3 minutes off. You want to give yourself 3 minutes on one thing. You want to get off of it. You want to do something else for a second. Be it another rudiment, be it another drum technique. Maybe you have to, send a text message. Wipe it clear of your brain and go back to it. This is going to be the difference between thinking from your head and thinking from your limb muscle memory. So let's go back to this again. Kick pattern, and if you're not able to immediately follow with the kick pattern, you're going to work it in patterns. You're going to start by just lining up the right foot. So, kick pattern, immediately followed by following right foot only, boom, right here. And I'm going to start working into consecutive notes through patterns. Here we go. 1, 2, ready. Again, at slower tempos like this, you don't necessarily have to be focusing entirely on getting the thing perfect and tight every time. Since we're working in patterns, to have the end goal be things tight, you're going to discover all kinds of really interesting little melodies you can play, because the next is going to be adding the snare drum in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the hi-hats with the kick drums, mirrored, and then I'm going to add the snare in. It'll start with a groove, I'll work patterns and eventually be into a blast beat. Again, important. Explore this at this tempo. This is where things become colorful and creative. Here we go. a lot of head movement in there. I'm looking at my snare, I'm looking at my hi-hats, I'm looking at the floor, I'm looking around the kit. I'm making sure that my stick is in the middle of the snare drum. I have this power center snare. If you don't have this power center snare, take a can of soup and a marker, make a little circle in the middle of your snare drums. It keeps you in the center here. Not because you have to be in here all the time, because you either have to be in here or outside of here. And it's best to pick a lane. Hats, again, depending on how they sound. The way these sound, I really like to lay the stick along the bow like this to give it kind of a lot of 1 and 2K happening in there. Funny little side note, the original Asocial Blast kind of sounded like this. It kind of sounded like a couple of really prime examples. They're going to be Liege of Inveracity and Effigy of the Forgotten, from the album Effigy of the Forgotten by Suffocation. Very straight. And the cool thing about this is he's just seamless on where his cymbal crashes go. He doesn't ever have to make any adjustments on the feet, which gives it this really massive, bulldozing, house-shaking power like this. Again, really plotting, really punishing, boom, 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 boom. It just keeps hitting you in the ribs. So many variations of this beat get used as we move along in death metal, and there's so many little things that happen in this. This becomes a framework. This kick pattern, this beat becomes such a solid framework to add so many different things on. And basically, it's kind of rhythmic purity. It's not complicated at all. It's quite meat and potatoes, and it's very easy to grab onto, and it's very easy to build onto. So here's a couple of examples before we close out this lesson. You're going to see kick patterns. You're going to see in and out of triplet, triplet and straight. You're going to see chinas, all kinds of things happening here. I'm going to do this for about 30 seconds. And the last thing to really capitalize on this beat is it was originally played open-handedly, as my knowledge goes, which opens up an entirely different, side of your playing. If you're able to approach this, if you follow guys like Mike Smith, Bobby Jarzenbeck, Simon Phillips, fantastic drummers that all play open. They do not cross over, and this is something that I've chased for quite a while. Gene Hoglan is another one. That's why we have 2 ride cymbals. But anyway, to close on this lesson, we're going to explore how this open hand thing works and how some of the drum fills fit in. So you'll see things like this. So that concludes the Mike Smith blast beat in its basic form. Very strong, very powerful, very clear, and a ton of fun to expand upon. You can add so much to this thing. It is just like a solid block that allows you to just add all kinds of stuff to it. Next lesson, we're going to be adding kick patterns to it and different kinds of accents just to make the thing swing, to make it sit still, to make it, go loops. It's going to be a good time. See you there.